Hey guys, in the video today I'm going to answer one question, and that's why did I buy this router? I already have two good routers, the Porter Cable 890 and the DeWalt DCW 600 compact router. So the question is, why did I purchase this specific router? This is the brand new Milwaukee 2838-20 half-inch handheld router. Now I've been using this router pretty consistently for the last month, and I want to tell you some of the things that I really like about it and some of the limitations that I have, especially as compared with my old tried and true 890. In the video today, we're also going to be going through the Plunge Base, and this I bought separate from the router itself because I already had batteries and I didn't need the kit. You can buy both of these units together as a kit that includes a battery and a charger if you don't already have batteries, to save a few dollars. Collet size is 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch, which runs from 12,000 to 25,000 RPMs. It's no load, just the router speed itself. It does have dual LED lights on the bottom. The base diameter is 6 inches. The length of the tool is 10.9 inches. The width is 6 inches and the height is 8.3 inches. The total weight of this tool is 6.2 pounds. And with all that out of the way, we're going to get to unboxing. So to start with, we have these rods for the edge guide, and then we have the attachment for the rods and the edge guide. In the box, we also have the edge guide itself, right here. And then these are set screws to help attach the rods to the edge guide. We've got our dust collector hose adapter. We have two 1 1/8 inch wrenches that come with it for changing bits in the collet. Here is the dust collector shroud. The base plate, now this comes with two base plates. This base plate is a smaller opening that'll accept a bushing like this for template routing. And then right here, we've got the router itself and a collet. And as I mentioned before, this accepts both 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch shanks. So that's a 1/4 inch. And then this is the 1/2 inch. So you can see the different size collets right there. On the top is where the battery goes. I have two of them here. I have the 6.0, just to show you what that looks like when it's attached. And then if you're somebody that isn't going to be doing a lot of work and you'd prefer a little bit lighter tool, it will operate on the 3.0 as well. Right here we've got a handle, and this has a Velcro strap. So you easily adjust the size of that to fit your hand and your palm grip. This router is designed for right-handed use. It'll work with both hands. I'm left-handed, and so I could work this, but the switch is right back here. If you're using it right-handed like this, then you can operate the switch with your thumb. So that makes it easy for turning the unit on and off. Speed is variable on this unit. It's not a variable switch. The switch is just on and off. But here we've got a dial that allows you to go from 12,000 RPM at the number 1 setting up to 25,000 RPM at the number 6 setting. We're going to take this unit out. I'll just show you how that comes out. So this is the release. So all I have to do is pull that, but you notice that that doesn't automatically drop it. I can adjust the height with this micro adjust wheel, and this goes in 1/64 inch increments here in the guide. But to release the motor completely from the base, it's pretty simple. You just push this button, which is the release, and then that pulled right out, just as you can see there. Now the motor will only go in one way because the height adjustment screw has to go into this receiver hole. So to put it back in, you'd line it up with the hole, just like that, and then press this button again and bring it down to the height that you need. So you can either hold it with the two overmolded hand grips here on the side, and that gives you a lot of good stability. Or you can have one hand here and then guide it with this hand, and that would give you really nice edge support here as you're running along the edge, because then you can prevent it from tipping over, especially if you don't have an extra base attachment that widens out the base. All right, it's time to take a peek at what's inside this box right here. This is the 48-10-2838 Plunge Base for the Milwaukee Fuel 1/2 inch router. So inside this box, we've got another dust chute with dust collection. We have another U-bolt to use with the dust collection hose and some attachment screws. And then we have the Plunge Base itself. Now, although the Plunge Base does come with its own dust collection chute, which is super handy, so you don't have to switch that out. when you're swapping routers in between the two bases. You do notice that on the bottom of the base is just the large standard opening. This is not the template base, so if we want to use templates with the plunge base, we'll need to share the template base and swap that out between the fixed base and the plunge base. The plunge base is pretty standard. If we take the router motor out, just loosen this up right here. A couple of differences is that to release the router motor from the fixed base, we need to press this button to disengage the adjustment rod that's attached to the micro adjustment right here. With the plunge base, we actually don't have that, so all we have to do is loosen this up right here, and the motor will slide in and out. So in terms of operating the base, it's just using the release right here to move it up and down. That is really smooth, actually, much smoother than my Porter cable, and that's probably from years of use with this. I do need to maintain that a little better. The base will lock in place wherever you release the lever. And we do have some stops down here. These vary from 1/8 inch to 5/8 of an inch for the stop rod, and we can set the height of this right here depending on the depth of plunge that we want to use. There's a micro adjustment knob right down here at the bottom, and that allows us to fine-tune that stop for the depth, just to really dial in the depth if we need to. The gauge guide is right here, and I can move this depth guide pretty easily to calibrate my plunge depth. So when this 1/2 inch router is in its fixed base, the power switch is here with your left thumb. That's pretty easy to operate. The handles are nice and curved, so it fits in your hand really well. Gives you a really good solid grip for that plunge. And then over here is where you'd set the speed, and that's pretty easily accessible as well. The motor is just slightly tilted, offset so that you can easily access the button to turn it on and off, and the speed to dial in the speed of your router. The other difference with the Porter cable base that I noticed is that to release the plunge, I can't just release the lever right here with my thumb. It's not spring-loaded that way, so I do have to take my finger and push it up to stop it wherever I want. And there's potential that moving my hand to do that, that the plunge base could shift just a little bit from where I set it. So the router is a standard fixed base. It comes with, as I mentioned before when we unboxed, comes with the dust shroud and then a template base that goes on here. And you can see the difference between the two bases. So the template base has a much smaller opening. The standard base has a larger opening, and this would accept larger bits, such as this one right here. So that would pass through there a lot easier as you're setting your height or your depth. Keep in mind when you do use the optional dust shroud that you're going to have to be mindful of how high to raise the bit with the dust shroud, because you don't want to set this bit so close to the dust shroud that you end up chipping that and damaging it. So to swap these plates out, this is a T25 bit or fitting here, and they are pretty stiff coming in from the factory. Then the plate will come off just like that. And I do want to point out one thing about the plate, at least on this one. There's a little bit of a tenon right here, and then on the base, the aluminum base, there's just this little bit of a groove for mortise. And so when you're putting this back on here, you want to make sure that you line up that so the plate sits nice and flush on there. If you try to put it any other way, any other hole, it won't sit quite flat, and it'll protrude just like that. The small opening plate doesn't appear to have that on it. So we just want to make sure that we put it on so that the countersinks where the screws would sit in are on the bottom of the plate. And so that's with the new plate installed, and that sits nice and flush on there. So if you're using a template bushing like this, you can see that that fits straight in there, and then the retaining ring goes on this side right here. And so this bushing happens to be a 3/4 inch outer diameter bushing that fits in there, but any of the standard bushing sizes will fit inside this opening. So that's the base, and you notice that the diameter of the opening on these two are different sizes. So this one with the template guide bushing is a much smaller opening than the standard opening right here. And because this is smaller, it has little holes to pick up dust. So when you use the dust shroud inside here, it'll fit over this so that it pulls up the dust through those holes. On this one, as you can see here, the holes aren't necessary because the entire underside of this is open, but it does reduce the opening here for the actual bit itself. Notice that this opening is big enough to allow the entire collet nut to go through it, but larger bits like this one would not fit through there. So you'd not be able to raise this bit up very far with the dust shroud installed. Now, dust shroud does fit into this opening only one way. As we can see here, we've got two openings for the guide rods, and that could be used again for this edge guide piece right here, and we'll install that in just a little bit. But there's also a U-bolt that goes in there, and that's to hold on the dust shroud. So in terms of installing the dust shroud into this, there's only one way that it goes. So you might think that it goes into the larger opening right here, and then the rods would come through that side. But actually, what we're going to do is set it in here like this direction, so that the rods go through, so that this U-rod goes through this side, and then through the openings here in the dust shroud to hold it in. Before I do that, it's going to be a lot easier if I at least get these little set screws put into the openings here, just because I can get my full hand around that and get those started. And we can just move that out of the way. We're going to slide this in this way, just like that. Then we're going to take the U-rod, and with the curve pointing up like this, you can install that. So with that in place, the rod's right there. We can tighten up these set screws. And then we have the dust extraction set up right there. Now the adapter will fit any standard shop size hose. So the hose adapter measures on this side 1.5 inches. And on the outside it measures 2.5 inches. So you can see it has a nice release right here. And it doesn't matter which way that goes on, the catch will hold on the retaining ring all the way around. So just install the adapter right there. And then shop vac hose just goes right into there, just like that. So with the dust hose attached, you can see that the orientation is that the switch, which is towards you when you're working, or you have this over the loop over your right hand, is towards you, and the hose for the dust collection is away from you. So you have to be mindful that the dust collection system is going to be over the work. But if you're working on the edge like this, then the hose will be away from you and not sticking back towards you, which is really nice. I do wish that this had the option to move the hose or angle the hose differently, but I'm sure with an attachment, a right angle attachment, I could have the hose shift off to a different direction. So let's talk for a minute about how we would install a router bit in this router. So the first thing we're going to do is release the spindle motor from the base, at least release the tension on it, and then we can push this button right here. And now we can get this on really nicely. We do have right here a lock for this nut. Without that, that would freely turn. With that locked in, we can turn that. If you don't want to push this button in, you can actually use 2 wrenches, just like this, to install it. But if you want to use a single wrench installation, then you just hold that down while you turn the collet nut. Now we want to set the depth of the bit right up against the collet, and then back it out at least a 1/16 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch would be fine. And tighten it up just like so. And that works really nicely. Now if I were to use this with the template base right here, I'll have to take into account the depth of the template, because this nut right here can only go down into the inside of this right here, and it can't go through that opening. That opening is just too narrow for it, as you can see right here. With the bit securely installed, now we can turn this on and give it a test run. So I'm going to put in a 6 amp hour battery. So right here you can turn it on. When you turn it off, the brake engages, which is really nice. So in terms of turning it on, this switch is spring-loaded, so when I pull it up, it has a little bit of force or resistance to get it to the on position, but then when I push it off, it's a very light touch of the switch to be able to flick it off. So we'll demonstrate that right now. And that would make it really easy if you're doing one-handed operation like this, to be able to turn it on and then just push down on the bottom of the button to turn it off. Now if you're just looking for a simple fence that uses the guide rods that comes with the fixed router base, you can actually use this one right here and attach just a 1x2 board to extend the fence out for some extra stability. And because the bolts hold the dust shroud into place, the furthest out that I'm going to be able to get this edge guide with the dust shroud in place is going to be that far out. That measures about 7 inches from the edge of the work to the center of the router bit. So the furthest in that you'd get a hole or a groove using this particular edge guide is about a 7-inch reach from the edge of the board. Now we're going to talk for a minute about aftermarket accessories, because there are a number of attachments that you can get instead of this edge guide to insert into the router base that would allow you to make curved kind of cuts, to cut edges in a curve. And one of those is a Woodpecker multifunction router base. The question is, because those router bases or aftermarket accessories offer different rod sizes depending on which model router you have, what is the rod size that will fit into this opening? I measured these rods with a micrometer, and it's 0.27 inches. It's the same as 9/32 of an inch, or 7 millimeters. So if you're looking at rod sizes, you can fit a smaller rod in this and then just cinch it down with these set screws. In this case, a 1/4 inch or a 6 millimeter rod size would fit in here just fine. Because there's not a lot of play with these rods in the holes at 7 millimeters, an 8 millimeter rod, which is 5/16 of an inch, would be too big for this opening right here. So you want to stick with the 1/4 inch and not go with the 5/16 rod. Now here you can see the router set up in the Woodpeckers multifunction router base. And setup works pretty well. You can see that it fits in with the 10 millimeter guide rods, and that attaches the router to the base pretty securely. One caveat with using it with the multifunction router base is that this little bolt right here that holds the end guide rods in place does interfere with the dust collection. So I'll either need to cut the bolt down shorter to be able to put this on, or find a shorter T-bolt that fits right here at the end of the base. Now if you're somebody who owns the Rockler Circle Cutting Jig, or you plan to purchase one, you may be wondering if this is compatible with this jig as well. Well, the short answer to that is yes. We do have a variety of mounting holes here in the bottom, and if we take the base, just a standard base, and line it up, we could see that these 3 holes right here would be used to mount either the fixed base or the plunge base to this cutting jig. And you'll notice that this jig does not use the guide rods, so you don't have to worry about guide rod size if you're using the circle cutting jig from Rockler. So back to the question of why did I purchase this specific router? There are 2 primary reasons why I purchased the Milwaukee 1/2-inch router. First is that it's pretty close to a direct comparison to the Porter Cable 890 that I've used over the years. Both of these routers come with a 1/2-inch collet, both have a 1/4 inch collet, both have plunge bases. The primary difference between these is that this is battery operated and this requires a cord. So what I intend to do with my Porter Cable 890 is to put that back into the router table where I've used it most over the years, and that's going to give me the convenience of not having to pull this router motor out every time I want to make a handheld cut. And I also don't have to find an extension cord to connect this up to. The other advantage to these is that the dust collection system is very different. And while the Porter Cable came with several bases, a fixed base, the plunge base that you see attached here, and then another fixed base with a template guide that also has the dust collection. You can see that the dust collection system between these 2 routers is significantly different. In here, the dust collection is integrated with the handle, and it doesn't have a shroud. It has a shroud that comes around the bottom right here and draws dust up into this, but I find that a lot of dust still escapes that because this opening is very narrow right in the bottom. But the dust collection here at the Milwaukee router I find is a lot more convenient to use. And I also have the advantage of having the dust collection built into both the fixed base and the plunge base, whereas here, if I wanted dust collection, I needed to use just the fixed base. So what are some of the drawbacks of the 1/2-inch router? Well, in terms of the motor functionality, there really isn't much that I see. It's super convenient having this handle on the side for the fixed base. I love the ergonomics of the plunge base. But the one thing in terms of ergonomics that I find could be improved is the dust collection. The dust collection port, as I mentioned, interferes with the Woodpecker's multifunction router base. And I also find that having the hose always go straight out over the work is not the most convenient. So I may get a right angle adapter just to be able to move that hose around a little better. But those are just really minor nitpicky things. Overall, I find that this is a solid router. It meets the needs of what I do here in the shop and then some. And it's going to be part of my woodworking journey for many years to come. So I want to know your thoughts as you saw me review this and show the unboxing. Is there anything I missed that I can answer in the comments down below? If so, leave me a question there. And if you have experience with this router, I'd like to hear your thoughts there as well. If you made it this far in the video, I'd really value if you smash that like button. And if you want to see more content like tool reviews and woodworking, just other fun things that I have going on here around the shop, consider becoming a subscriber to the channel. And that's going to wrap it up for this one. I just want to thank you guys for watching.